First of all, I'm going to demonstrate to you the short splice. Basic tools first of all. You can do splices without tools, but you find that sometimes the ropes are wound that tight that it's difficult to feed the strands through. So the first tool, and one of the favourites I use, is this. It's called a Swedish fid, and it's available from most yachting shops. Roping tools, as a rule, steel tools are called spikes or marline spikes, and wooden tools are called fids. If that was a wooden tool, it would be called a fid. But to confuse things, this is called a Swedish fid and it's made of steel. So that's the Swedish fid. The next one is a good sharp knife. Now, ropes are quite tough on the tools, the cutting tools, so they require a good keen edge. Every time that's used, it's sharpened and put away because the edge soon goes off it. So that we don't mark any furniture or flooring or such, like a good cork block to cut against. And finally, to tie the strand off, we need something like whipping twine, or I use for splicing work dental floss, just to tie the strands back. And first of all, I've prepared a rope. We'll imagine that this is two pieces of separate rope which are broken. I've trimmed the ends and I'm now going to start to prepare it for the short splice. You unravel the rope about 6 inches, or 1 fid length. That's about 6.5 to 7 inches. So you measure down the length of rope, hold it between finger and thumb, and unwind it. One of the main secrets of doing a splice is to take your time with it and to pull everything tight as you work. If you don't do that, the splice will be very slack when it's finished and it will start to come undone. It's unlikely that a rope will break on a splice. If it does, it's usually due to some outside agency, such as a rubbing action on the woodwork or something like that, or perhaps even a seized pulley between the belfry floor and the bell itself. Well, there we are. I've undone the rope, the 3 strands, approximately the same length, 6.5 to 7 inches, or 1 fid length. Now then, what we do is we interpose the 2 sets of strands alternately on each side. Grip those 3 strands there, those 3 strands there, and pull the rope so that it comes together. This is what they call marrying. You marry the rope together. Now you've got 3 strands from that side on this side, and 3 strands from this side of rope on that side. Now this is where the dental floss comes in. Take a short length and just tie off 1 set of strands on the one side. That will later be released when we come to work on that side. It's just to keep them out of the way whilst you make the splice. So just tie that off. It's a awkward working actually, it's quite hot. And now we're ready to start the splice. Simple rule, you pull the strands tight, as I said before. Now you feed where the strand comes out. You note the strand which it passes immediately under it, open it up and feed the strand through. So you work over one and under the next. So the first tuck is made there, like that. Now you go to the second strand, you work against the lay all the time, out over the one by which it emerges, and under the next. And the third third one out over the one by which it emerges and under the next. Most splicing books will tell you that a maximum of 3 tucks on each side is enough. What I like to do is I do 5 tucks and then I start to taper the splice down. I'll show you how that's done in a minute. Again, out over the one by which it emerges and under the next. I've done 3 tucks, so I'll do each strand again. 1, 2. Actually, you'll notice I'm not using the spike at the moment. I'm managing to open the strands enough to feed the splice through, and the third one again. If you're working with synthetic ropes, the more tucks that you do, that's why I do 5 actually, because it makes a firmer splice. Push the spike through. Now this is the beauty of the Swedish fid. As you push it through, it opens the strand out and you just feed the strand that you're working with underneath. So that's it. Pull it through. The problem with this rope is it's worn, and it can be a little bit difficult to actually see which strand you're going to feed under. So you notice each time push it through and then work it up tight. Like so. And that's the start of the splice. It's starting to form now. You see I'm gradually working down and it's gradually coming together. I'll do these three more tucks and then I'll start to taper the splice down. 1, pull it tight. Right, now that's half of the splice started. To taper it down, quite simple. All you do is you open the strands and you count. There's usually about 10 to 12 smaller strands making up the one larger one. You just halve them. Count out about 4 or 5 of the strands and unravel. Pull it down, and where they come out through the rope you just cut them off.
So would you normally have done 5 instead of 3
Yes,
then?
yeah.
I see.
But as I say, 3 is adequate. Most of the rope books and people who work with ropes will tell you 3 is enough. It actually does look better if you make it longer as well. It looks neater. There again like that. Right, Right, and then we just carry on with the splice. Do another 3 to 5 tucks. We always work from the right to the left. All the time, working against the lay of the rope. Now it's starting to get difficult now. The rope is rather tight and I need the spike to open up the strands. It's actually better if the rope is tight. You'll get a tighter, neater splice. And it's a little bit more difficult to do. But it's neater. For anyone who'd like to have a go at splicing, the best thing to do is to get some length of rope and to keep practicing, because practice in this is it's very true. Practice makes perfect. You try it over and over again. Yes, yeah. It's one of these things. Even though I do it, I still practice all the time and try and improve and that sort of thing. As you can see, it takes quite a bit of time to. It's not a thing which is done in 5 minutes, sort of thing. I'm actually trying to rush this through now for the purposes of demonstration.
That's what you did for us. You had it back in about 10 minutes. Because you were only back on the Bennington meeting.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Rope repair.
Must have been on a good day, that. Now you see, as I'm making the splice now, I've halved the strands. The splice will gradually pull in tighter so that you get a nice taperage end. Now it looks a bit rough at the moment. Don't worry about that. All the time you can feel it's very tight on the strand. Pull it in. It can be quite hard on the hands as well. Because sometimes it's pretty hard material to work with, you know. That's the last of the tucks on this side. Now, at this stage we leave the strands like this and go to the other side. With our turns of dental floss to be put on, just break those off, because you won't need them now. Discard them. And you can then start on the 3 strands the other side. And you do exactly the same with these strands. You start splicing from left to right along the length of rope and working from the right side across against the lay to the left. You look again out over the strand by which it emerges and under the next. So you just pop that open. I'm sure the one by which it emerges. Again, we've done 3 tucks there. Do be. And again. So that's 6 tucks up on this side. I'll do another 3 and then start to taper it down again. All the time just checking that it looks neat, that it's pulling up tight. Start to taper it down. So again, pinch the strands in half. And then we've got that 5. In actual fact, this rope is at the stage where it's beyond its useful life. The strands are starting to actually break up. So it's a little bit difficult to actually demonstrate a good splice on that, but still, hopefully it's got the main idea. There again. As you can see, it's quite a messy bit. You should have an overall or something. And the last one. Take it out again. Keep the strands as you pull them through, keep them wound tight. That makes it neat as well. Pull it through. time it's getting harder and harder to work down as the splice is pulled tight. And the last three. And there's the final top made. Now there is the short splice. Not quite finished yet. You notice I haven't cut the strands off. You don't do that till you've stretched the splice thoroughly. What I have at home in the back garden is a pole post with a large wooden lever at the other end, and I can lean on the rope, give it a good stretch. You can do it underfoot.
What about putting it round that way?
And I might pull it off the wall. I probably would. The basic idea, you see, is to pull all the strands in tight, make it really tight, and then trim off the splice. Now something which was frowned upon years ago by sailors who used to do a lot of this sort of rope work as their everyday work on board sailing ships. You never ever stand on a rope. We've thrown that away, that idea. You place the rope down and just roll it underfoot, putting moderate weight on it, and gradually slide your foot along from one end to the other. That rolls the splice and makes it look a lot neater. It's best done on a stone floor or a flagstone. If you don't want to do that, you can place it on a block of wood and perhaps beat it with a rolling pin or something. And there we are, that's the short splice completed. Next demonstration I'm going to show you is the long splice. Now the demonstration I've given to you before, the short splice, this type of splice which I'm going to show you now is done quite a bit differently. There's not as many tools used, and it's done where a rope passes over a wheel, a pulley wheel, or through a space, because when the splice is completed it's only about the same thickness as the rope, slightly thicker, that's all, but it's a lot different in the way it's made up. The only tools I need for this, in fact, are the knife and the spike again. I don't need the dental floss because you don't tie the strands back. So here we are, we've got the broken rope. I've trimmed it off, the frayed ends, squared it off, and we now measure again with the spike 2 fid lengths, 1, 2, or count, you unravel the rope 10 turns. So I'll do it to the spike lengths, 1 spike length, 2 spike lengths, just hold it between finger and thumb and start to unravel. The same as I did before with the short splice. Just speed it up a bit. And again, there. Now you see already I'm opening the rope out to a much greater length. It does use slightly more rope, this splice. It's not quite as strong as the short splice, but as I say, it's neater for passing through pulleys and that sort of thing. It's a little bit sticky, this. It won't come free. Usual way. This rope which I'm demonstrating with actually is natural hemp or flax rope. It's quite expensive now these days, and it's only used for specialist ropes like bell ropes and that sort of thing. The majority of ropes used on both small vessels at sea and large ones are either steel or man-made fibre, terraline, something like that. Polyester rope is used for church bell ropes where you want high resistance to abrasion or moisture, and they form a very good alternative. Just open the strands out, and again I prefer to do this splice on a surface like the floor because you can lay it out. You interpose the strands again like we did for the short splice. I've just got to watch here so I don't bring the ropes together like so. What I'm actually doing here is like I did before with the short splice, is I'm going to marry them together, but it's a little bit more difficult because the strands are longer. That's why I prefer to work on a surface, and you can see what's happening. Right, now having gone to that stage, this is where the splice differs. We now pick a strand which is still laid up on one side of the rope, on this side, and we unwind that for 5 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and pull that out of the way. Now, a strand of rope from this side which we've unravelled, we then feed into that groove that we've just made, taking that strand out. When you do this splice, at all times the rope should look like a continual piece, continual length. So I've unwound one for 5 more turns, and I've laid one in its place for 5 turns. Now that gives us a pair of strands there. So you can forget about those at the moment, and you do the same on this piece of rope. Just make sure I don't get the strands mixed up. Yes, there's one. So here we go again. 1, 4, 5, and again on the strands, roll that into the groove which has been vacated by the strand as I've just unravelled. All the time, for neatness, you keep turning the strand in so that it follows the line and looks neat. Now, as you can see, the rope is already starting to come together and look like a continual piece of rope. Now that leaves us with 2 strands in the centre. We don't worry about that, because we next take our fid and we mark roughly the length of the fid and cut the pair of strands which we've got here, cut them off to the length of the fid so that you've got 2 even strands of rope. Do the same with your 2 centre pair. You don't have to be absolutely spot on accurate with the measurement. Approximate is near enough, providing that both the strands are roughly the same length. You won't go far wrong.